Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Prep Life. Just got back from San Bernardino training at Route 66 Sports Shooting Park. Thanks for coming out and see me. Had a preparedness seminar on Friday. 170 people showed up. 170 people at our brewery. Big shout out to Escape Brewery for hosting that. Look, guys, a lot of people have given up on California. I have as a state until somebody's willing to step up and serve the people of California. But the people of California, I will never give up on. It's an honor always coming out there and train, and some of the best people that I train with in the country are in California. Went to Route 66 Sports Shooting Park. Big shout out to Caleb and the team out there. Always getting it done for Fieldcraft Survival. Had a great day. Went out to a Thai restaurant, crushed Thai hot, like straight from Thailand. I felt like I was in Thailand. And then Sunday closed it out with a level 2 course. And then we drove 9 hours straight to get here for Memorial Day. We did a podcast on Memorial Day, and a lot of people have asked me, like, hey, man, what's your opinion on Memorial Day? Like, what do you think? And I did a video. It's the last video. It doesn't have a high account, but the people who watched it get the message, which is a lot of people who are going through identity crisis as Americans don't really know what these things are about, right? I mean, a lot of people talk crap about the country, and they're in the country getting all the benefits of the country. What I would say on Memorial Day especially is it's hard for a lot of people, including myself. I mean, it was not easy having to text people, getting texts from people who are not okay. I mean, I feel like I fare pretty well. I'm really resilient. I knew what I was getting into. But a lot of guys aren't like that. A lot of guys deal with that. And if you're a member of a family, like a direct spouse to somebody who paid the ultimate sacrifice, it's even more difficult. I just say have some empathy, have some humility, and understand every day is Memorial Day for these people. Memorial Day is not just a weekend where you barbecue with your family. Every day for these people, especially the families who are left behind, it is Memorial Day. Anyways, left that message for you guys. I hope you had a good Memorial Day and exercised your freedoms, but remembered always the sacrifice those men and women made for you to allow you to have those freedoms. Tell me your name, your background in the military, and then what we're talking about today.
All right, so my name is Dan Robert, retired from the U.S. Army. I was a staff sergeant. I finished out my 12-year time with a medical retirement after a few different things happened. I was the first named plaintiff against the Pentagon in a court case over the vaccine mandate. So when kicked off in March of 2020, I was actually in the Drill Sergeant Academy in Fort Jackson. August 9th of 2021, Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, had said that he's going to mandate the shot, whether it seeks FDA approval or not. And then he said, right, so he said, and I will seek the president's approval if otherwise, whatever comes first.
Just got done with the Telling podcast. Have a piece of paper here. I'm going to go over this piece of paper on the Underground. If you're not familiar with the Underground, this podcast is not sponsored by anybody. It's sponsored by me and my Patreon members. If you're a patron on my patreon.com/Mike Glover, you can get access to the Underground, and I'm going to talk about this in the Underground because if I talked about it right now, I would be banned from YouTube. So I just got done about 30 minutes ago podcasting a gentleman by the name of Dan. Dan was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army. Dan was one of those guys who said, I'm not going to take the jab. It doesn't matter why he decided to do that. There was a law and a piece of litigation that he was able to find and reference that allowed him to not have to do that. Except when you were in the military during this period of time, nobody cared. There wasn't anybody in charge that was willing to say, hey, we need to protect the soldiers' rights, especially their values, which are very important, like personal courage, like, I don't know, integrity. There was nobody to do that for these guys. So what happened? We lost thousands of them. Thank God this guy was able to litigate and say, hey, I'm going to go after you. I'm going to sue you because I have all the paperwork right here that says that this is unjust and illegal. And he did that, and they went after him like they did many soldiers, sailors, and Marines that went after these men and women in uniform because they didn't want to comply, right? Religious, medical, it didn't matter. because your religion doesn't matter. Your medical conditions don't matter in pre-existing conditions. We're going to mandate this. We talk about it in detail, so I won't go in too much detail, but he gave me a document that lines out the statistics. This is a spreadsheet of the injuries prior and the injuries after they decided to mandate this thing. And the numbers on this sheet of paper are alarming. Now, I haven't found anything, but I take this man via the couple points of contact that I know him, his story, the litigation, his testament before Congress, his presentation on Fox News, and I will believe him, and I believe this piece of paper. Again, I'll get this to the into this via the Underground, which I film right after this, which is on my Patreon. The link's down below. Let's talk about this debt ceiling, because right now the debt ceiling's the big news, and they just got through a deal. According to the national media, these companies are winners in the debt ceiling deal. Why was this an issue? Well, I don't know. If you're an American and you're getting hit hard in the pocket, or the housing market's a disaster, or you've lost your job, or you're just trying to make ends meet, it's because partly we are in a recession. I mean, every professional economist has determined that we are literally by the numbers in a recession. Now, the difficult part of this recession will take place later this year, but if you look at the government and what we're doing about it, when you look at them about to default on debt, where we are not paying our own bills, while we're spending trillions of dollars on things like Ukraine. I mean, cumulatively, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars, but likely it's going to be trillions. Cumulatively, we're spending a lot of money, trillions of dollars, on things that we have no idea. We have no idea as taxpayers where it's going. So one of the issues they had was finding and striking balance. They already knew they were going to sign off on this deal prior to us defaulting. They already knew it. They just had to get to the table and figure out the compromise, just like they do every single year for the defense budget or for all these bills, because every single politician has a lobbyist, has an interest that's special, where they need to navigate how they're going to pay for their next election. I mean, this is one of the ways that our government has lost complete trust from the American people. I mean, complete trust. Do you trust the politicians that are in charge right now? I certainly don't. When they're weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after people, including this soldier that I just literally interviewed for the Black Rifle Coffee podcast, when they call me a domestic terrorist because I'm making people come together to do things like be better prepared for the worst case scenario, natural and man-made. When they're literally going after every single person who was there as a potentially peaceful protester on January 6th and calling them terrorists. 1,000 people have been apprehended. Did they do that when Antifa was burning the cities to the ground? Did they go after those BLM members that were literally burning black businesses to the ground in Atlanta, Georgia? When the mayor and Killer Mike, a rapper, had to get on TV and go like, hey, people, you guys need to stop burning down our own communities. They were actually addressing mostly white people that were at BLM protests and Antifa members who were masked up. Did they go after them? The answer is no, they didn't. They didn't go after any of them. But they're going after Americans because it's the political weaponization of what's taking place in our society. So do you trust the government with your money? I certainly don't. They want an additional $20 billion for IRS funding. Maybe it helped pay for the $37,000 enforcers of the IRS, those legal enforcers to go after you as taxpayers. Are they going after the Bidens? No, they're going after you. That loss of funding to the IRS is a positive, according to the national media, because in this deal, they said, hey, we're not going to take that $20 billion. We're going to reduce that, and companies like H&R Block and TurboTax might have a job because they have the outsourced ability, the commercial ability, the private marketplace ability to provide that service. Other things like the defense industry is also emerging largely unscathed from the debt ceiling battle, where, unlike other debt ceiling spend limits, the Defense Department was hit. No hits here in the Defense Department. The military-industrial complex, you're safe. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all of you guys who work for them. I'm all about that. What I'm not about is warmongering and going to war for no good reason because we need to keep spending the money, which seems to be like the case right now, right? We're not actually trying to fix what's going on in Ukraine. We're virtue signaling about it and spending a lot of money through defense contracting, making American jobs to inflate those numbers because we need those numbers next year when we're at the presidential debate. But we don't see what we're actually doing in these countries. And that's scary. That is super scary. Despite the spending caps, Goldman Sachs says inflation-adjusted discretionary spending is set to grow slightly next year because Congress already approved such a large spending hike for fiscal 2023. From a market perspective, this deal should be viewed as unquestionably positive. It remains deeply disheartening that it took months of posturing and an impending catastrophic deadline to produce a decidedly modest piece of legislation, but Washington is poised to avoid economic calamity, and for that, we should be thankful. So we avoided the worst of the worst case scenarios. Here's what I want to do. I want to go on here before I get to some of your questions. I like to go to these news cycles in national media. They change by the minute and see what the headlines are. I want you to see how these particular news agencies are posturing because as a private media guy, a guy who's providing you media with little to no bias, and there's likely bias in there. Like, I want to talk about my book, Prepared. Why? Because I'm biased. I want you to read about preparedness, right? I run a company in preparedness, but not in the way that corporate media is doing it in mainstream. CNN reports these companies are the winners in the debt ceiling deal. Not really political. Obama agreed to $2.1 trillion in spending cuts to end the 2011 debt ceiling crisis. Here's what happened next. This is the last time that we went through this debt ceiling crisis. Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has dementia. She continues to live at home with her husband, Jimmy, who's in hospice care. Michael Jordan was a horrible player and horrible to play with, says former Chicago Bulls teammate Scottie Pippen. So when I read those first three headlines on CNN, as the national media source for news, I read that and I go, what the hell is going on? Because they're talking about Scottie Pippen and Jimmy Carter's wife. Like, what are we not talking about and why? Let's just take that same thing and go to the far right side of this debate, to foxnews.com. Lindsey Graham comes out swinging after Russia issues warrant for his arrest. Okay. Second story, major grocery chain reportedly fighting to keep stores open as theft, violence increase. And then the third story is Dodgers star speaks out against organization's decision to honor anti-Catholic LGBTQ group. Again, so now we're looking at both sides of the media. I saw this already this morning. I didn't do this live. I look at it every single morning. And I thought to myself, why is there nothing in the national media about actual stories that are important to the American people? And one, it's because there's a reason. They don't want you to see the important stories, like the issues that are happening in Ukraine, or even the debt ceiling disaster or debacle that we just avoided, and the nitty-gritty, the things that would make you pay attention to the details. So this is why private media is so important. It's why I continue to advocate for private media and why I continue to do this show in my own way. It revolves around everything that is preparedness related. So I want to give you relevant things that are going to help you make decisions about your future. One of the things that I've been asked recently is, why don't you concentrate efforts on things like financial preparedness? Financial preparedness is very important because if you're not financially prepared, you won't be prepared for the future. I have actually done a prep life on financial preparedness, and I talk about it in the book. You guys could find that in an older episode that's archived, but it is important. When I was talking at the preparedness seminar in Redlands, California, some things hit home to me. One of those things has to do with the state of our communities in our country. Not a lot of people come together nowadays. When's the last time you've been to church? If you don't go to church because you just don't roll in church. I mean, I don't go to church. I'm a God-fearing man. I believe in God. I am a Christian, but I'm non-denominational. I took on the non-denominational when the military asked me, what's your religion? And Christian non-denom was on my dog tags. Why are you Christian non-denominational? Well, because men, human beings, are really good at screwing good things up. Because I grew up in church. I grew up in different variations where my mom was learning about theology. She actually studied it post her high school diploma that she got while an American citizen in her 30s, in her 40s. And then she went to college for theology, for religion, world religious studies. We went to Catholic church. We went to Baptist. We went to Presbyterian. We went to every version of it. And I was part of that experience as a kid. And my perspective stepping back was, man, human beings really know how to screw up a good thing. So I became non-denominational. And when I stepped away from church, I had to find and build my community in other ways. So I did a lot of martial arts. Growing up my entire life as a teenager, as a kid, as a teenager, and as an adult, I was always involved in some local martial arts. When I was stationed at Fort Myer, I did Taekwondo and Kung Fu before Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was even a thing. When Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became a thing, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I did Muay Thai kickboxing, I did boxing at NBS in Raleigh, North Carolina. I did all the things because those were my people. That was my tribe. What tribe do you belong to now? What community do you belong to now? You might be on a Facebook group page. You might be on a Signal text thread. You might be in a Instagram account that you think is community, but it's not. Virtual communities are a start point in getting people together in real time, in real life. So having 170 people show up in Redlands, California at a local brewery was really cool. But I want you guys to engage with one another and build relationships. A couple of the questions that were asked of me, which I'll repeat here, was, how do I become a good dad? And that hit me pretty hard because being a good dad is a difficult thing. I mean, it's hard to gauge what being a good dad even means. I mean, you probably likely should reflect back on an experience when your kids are adults and parents and good people and maybe have kids of their own. And they say, as a granddad, was I a good dad? And maybe that's the validation. But I think being a good dad, just like being a good person, is a constant work ethic. It's a constant cycle. It's a constant improvement and evolution. And so I said to this kid, this young man whose wife is pregnant, he's about to be a father, an expecting father, which is congratulations. I would say to be a good dad requires you to be a good man. And not a lot of people are good men and women. You know, a lot of people are good at their profession. A lot of people are good at their hobby, their martial art, whatever it is. But you could be a good father and still be a horrible man. So I think the base point is try to be a better version of you, man, woman, and that will help you be a better version of everything else that you want to be. You know, you strive to be a better man will help you strive to be a better father. And that is a constant, never standing on a pinnacle, on a platform saying, I did it. It is a constant evolution and a constant process, which is the beauty in it, really, because you'll never be that. You'll always work to being what that is, but you'll never be that defined. And so being a better man, being a better human is the best practice and way to be a better father. And I hope that helps a little bit. Another question asked to me is, when are you going to go on tour for your book, Prepared? And I have probably 10 different engagements right now for this book, Prepared. There are book signings all over the country, And every time I do a preparedness seminar, I will offer the option, because a lot of the things that I talk about, that I've been talking about for nearly a decade, come from the preparedness seminar, which a lot of that was turned into the book. And I'm a critic of my own stuff. I mean, you don't have to assess me. You don't have to criticize me. You don't have to shit talk me. I do it to myself. Like, I don't need your gross opinions. I have gross opinions of myself constantly because I'm trying to always improve. I was very critical of this book. I listened to part of it on the way up on that 9-hour drive from Utah to California to teach. And when I was listening to the book, a lot of it I actually was semi-impressed by on the way that it's very applicable and practical for people. What I don't like is like the zombie apocalypse book they're fun. I have them all on this bookshelf behind me. They're fun. But I like the practical application of knowledge and information that I'm going to be able to implement and see in my life making change. So I hope that's what you grasp from this. The worst thing about listening to my own book was listening to Ray Porter, the voice of the Terminal List series, because Jack Carr wrote my foreword. The worst was hearing him say it so eloquently in that amazing voice of his, and then hearing me talk through my book, because the best part of the book is the foreword. And I'm very critical of my book, but I know, like, when you hear the foreword from Jack Carr read by Ray Porter, or you read it, it is going to get you pumped for preparedness. And I hope I met all your expectations. I want to say thank you for all the support for this book, guys. This has been a long time coming. Right now, we're over 12,000 copies because of you guys. I don't have a goal in selling books. It's just not what I do. I don't try to sell books. I try to teach you guys about preparedness. That number is pretty good according to the publisher, but that number is because of your overwhelming support, and I appreciate you. I just want to say thank you for that, and I appreciate you. Guys, Prep Life, we'll have another version of this week. This week I'm teaching at home in Provo, Utah on Saturday and Spanish Fork on Sunday, and then going on the road for this book tour. I got a book launch release on Tuesday, flying to Andy Frisella's for his podcast on Wednesday, and then I'll see you guys in Kalispell, Montana. If you haven't signed up, we have a whole bunch of courses that are all over the country going on every single weekend, and this book tour thing, you guys can see me all over, and you can find all that stuff on fieldcraftsurvival.com. Until next time, peace out, guys.